Hi everyone, this was sort of a bonus activity. I thought I'd just throw it in here because I really find that the assignments function is really handy and worthy of you spending a little bit of extra time to figure out how it works. Um, you're just going to have more and more students submitting things digitally, and so how do you accommodate that through the D2L platform? So you can see up here the little folder or the tool called assignments. You're going to find people like myself are going to refer to it as a Dropbox because that's what it used to be called. And frankly, I don't like the term assignments that much. It's rather confusing because the assignment could be the instructions, whereas the Dropbox clearly is talking about that's where you submit the material. What we want to do is set up our assignments so that anything that gets submitted can be graded. And ultimately, for instance, it might look like this. So I'm not going to write about the instructions. I'm going to say, look, here's the link to the instructions. So if you want to go read them, but you should already know what they are if you're at the point of submitting them. Key thing is how are things going to be marked? So here's my rubric and the levels that you can get out of the assignment. Great thing is, as compared to a paper rubric, I find that when I hand out the rubric to students, half of them end up in the recycling box that period. So this way, students know exactly what's expected from them when the assignment is being handed out, and of course, they should review it when they're ready to submit it and make sure that they do well. So how do we set up the assignment? So let's go into assignments. And whoops, I'm viewing as a student at the moment, so I'm going to switch this over to teacher mode. And I'm going to create a new assignment. I'm just going to call it assignment 1. I could have instructions in here, or I could just simply say, here are the instructions, and then link it to the instructions that would be sitting in the content. This is a sandbox course, so I don't have any instructions. So next this is a big decision. So for instance, I do a lot of digital maps, or um, students might be handing in, for instance, a link to a Prezi. If it's going to be the student submitting just a link or maybe even just a comment or two, then you're going for text submission. On the other hand, if they've been working on a document, it's best that they download that document as a PDF file and then submit it as a file. All right, so um, once you really have to make sure you understand what you're looking for. Now, let's say, for instance, with geography, there's a map that they do in class on paper. If I would like to grade that on my what you call it website, then I would simply say on paper submission. And so I would just enter a mark and comments, and I would not expect the students to have anything actually put into the Dropbox. But by and large, you're going to use either file or text submission. So the next thing, this is the big one right here. So if this is a final project and you want to eliminate plagiarism, you want to check off this box. Okay, so what that's going to do is it's going to give you a score of what percentage of the paper can be found somewhere else on the internet. And you can actually click on that score and it'll show you exactly the students' work and compare it and show you where it's found on the internet. Don't use this for regular assignments because if they hand in a document that you provided to them, most of it's going to come back as quote plagiarized because it's using the words of the text that you gave them in the first place. So you don't use it for regular assignments. Typically, you just use it for big final projects. Category. So it's a good idea to have your um, just set up your units and that'll essentially be your categories. That way your Dropbox is sorted out by unit instead of just sorted out alphabetically. Now, you could, for instance, not use a rubric, but for instance, you're just scoring it out of 20, and you're going to read through and just score each question. Then you would just give them a mark here, for instance, out of 20. If, on the other hand, you're going to be using a rubric, you need to know what the total score is for that rubric. All right, so you might want to create the rubric first and then go back and put the total score in there, because you may not know that until after your rubric is created. This grade item is only if you set up grades, and you're a superstar if you're doing grades calculated on D2L. I'm not going to get into that for now, so just leave that as none. If you want to add a rubric, you would click on here. If you don't have an actual rubric, then you could create a new one in a window. I'm not going to get into rubrics right now, so we'll just, for now, just leave it out of 20. Then you go save and close. And you'll notice this is not visible. It's automatically defaulting to not visible. So if I want to change that, I can just go make visible to users. Or let's say, for instance, I don't want it visible until a particular date. So I go into restrictions here, and I would go, don't worry about hiding it, but instead has a start date, which will be, I don't know, the 4th of September. Make sure it starts in the morning. And then I don't like end date. End date means that it's going to disappear from view from the students. That creates a lot of problems. Instead, have a due date, and it'll automatically flag things that can't come in late, and you can decide whether you're going to deduct marks at that point. So I like using start date and due date in order to. Now, once I do that, you'll notice that when I go back, there it is in my calendar. It automatically updates my calendar, which is nice and handy. And it'll also, if the students have gone into their notifications, it'll also send them a reminder of when that is due to their cell phone, which is also pretty handy. Now, if you're going to create a rubric, I'm just going to point you towards the tutorials. All right, and you might want to take a look through how to do, where is it? Rubric. There it is right there. Read through how to do the rubric. So give it a whirl. Try setting up a class assignment. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop by and ask me any questions.